I was my father's little assistant as soon as I was able to walk and speak. I wore a hard helmet that covered my entire head as I worked around construction sites. Daniel Harper, my father, started Armstrong Constructions from the ground up and expected me to carry on his legacy. Not that it bothered me. I was as much a part of the concrete and blueprint world as I was of my own skin. It was more than a job for me to work for Dad's firm. It was my life. I never could exactly fit relationships into my schedule. In addition, Emily, my best friend from kindergarten, was there. Emily was quite different from me. She saw flirtatious gowns and Friday night dates, whereas I saw lines and angles. Emily would giggle and flip Anna's hair, which was always a rainbow color. "Anna, you need to get out more," Emily would say. Not all men are as boring as concrete. Up until Ethan showed up, I merely shook my head and concentrated on my spreadsheets and client meetings. As a manager, he moved from the Atlanta branch. I recall the day he entered the workplace for the first time. He had this effortless smile that gave everyone in the room the impression that they were the most important person. "I've heard a lot about you, Claire Harper." "I promise you all good things," he replied, holding out his hand. His hold was confident and solid. "Consider that. They lied if they told you I'm a pushover," I shot back, arching an eyebrow. He gave a real head-back chuckle. "I guess I'll have to find out for myself." His charisma had an immediate effect on me. Dinner dates emerged from coffee breaks. After-dinner conversations became late-night chats about everything and nothing. Emily dated males, but Ethan wasn't like them. He was tenacious but courteous, driven but sensible. How easily I fell in love with him was both invigorating and scary. It was just the two of us having a picnic in the park beneath the stars when he proposed. Nothing spectacular, simply a sincere declaration of love. When it comes to emotions, Anna, I'm not a guy of many words, but I know this. I want to live my entire life with you. Are you going to marry me? "Yes," I said without thinking twice. The choice was as clear-cut and firm as a skyscraper's foundation. With the exception of the knot in my stomach and the white rose bouquet quivering in my hands, the morning of my wedding seemed like any other day. Staring at my mirror, I whispered to myself, "Can't believe I'm doing this." The girl in the mirror appeared to be a bride because of her beautiful white outfit, but her eyes were wide as if she were going to jump off a cliff. Emily laughed and hurried into the room, carrying a bag of cosmetics. "Hey, you look like you're going to a funeral, not your own wedding," she taunted. "Let's add some color to those cheeks." I rolled my eyes, but I allowed her to apply paint and powder to my face. "Please, don't make me appear ridiculous. It's not the royal family, it's simply Ethan." With a chuckle, Emily deftly maneuvered brushes and pencils with her hands. "Trust me, by the time I'm done with you, Ethan's going to fall in love all over again." The event was a haze. With his arm resting steadily on mine, my father guided me down the aisle. Halfway down, he muttered, "You sure about this, kiddo?" I gave his arm a squeeze. "Yeah, Dad, I'm sure." With a confident and broad smile, Ethan was standing at the altar. It gave me stability and lightened my steps. The words I'd heard 100 times in movies and at friends' weddings were easy, but when I spoke them out loud, promising the guy in front of me forever, they felt different. Rachel, Ethan's sister, arrived with her 2 young children after the wedding and thanked me for turning her brother into the happiest man alive. She said, "I don't know how you did it, taming my wild brother," when we observed Ethan dancing with several of our nieces and nephews. I joked, observing him with a mix of affection and amusement. "Just had to use the right bait," I said. The weeks that followed were spent opening presents and writing thank-you notes. The largest shift, though, came from Ethan's suggestion that I give up my work and concentrate on the two of us and our house. It sounded so archaic, so unlike the life I had imagined for myself. You really think I should quit? One evening, with new kitchen counter brochures lying out on the table between us, I inquired. Yes, sweetie. You see, ever since you were a young child, you have been at your dad's disposal. With his palm covering mine, he added, It's time for us now. As I bit my lip, I noticed our intertwined fingers. And what if I find it offensive? Should I be an awful housewife? He laughed and squeezed my hand. We hire a maid, and you return to work after that. However, I have a gut sense that you'll excel at this. I thus handed the business my notice. Dad was taken aback but gave his support. It was a sad last day at work. With a hopeless yet sorrowful heart, I packed away my desk. Ethan could have been correct. Perhaps it was time for a change of scenery. Ethan encircled me from behind when I was trying out a new supper dish that evening, undercooking the pasta and scorching the garlic. He kissed my cheek and lied, saying, "Smells good." I leaned back into him, exhilaration at the prospect of venturing into the unknown, but also the usual anxiety of change gnawing at me. I hoped that my new position as a housewife would seem as natural as my previous one did. "We'll see," I remarked. After 3 years of marriage, life had settled into a rhythm that was dependable, steady, and perhaps a little too quiet, like the ticking of the kitchen clock. Thanks to Dad, Ethan had received a significant promotion in the company. The salary was pretty excellent. We ought to have been ecstatic, choosing baby names and conjuring up hues for the nursery. However, the baby portion was, well, non-existent. I had visited physicians and undergone testing, and all of the results were normal. The doctor encouraged me to just give it time, with a comforting-looking grin. I thus waited, occupying my days with home renovation projects and making our house seem like something from a magazine. Emily made a shocking announcement at this time. She was expecting. Though I forced a grin on my face, I was shocked by the news. "Luce, it is incredible. Who's the father?" I asked, trying not to seem too serious. She shuffled nervously, averting my eyes. "Oh, you don't know him, just someone I met." She abruptly shifted the topic. She gave birth to a son a few months later. I bought her a lovely present, a high-end baby bag that is both stylish and useful. "You're a lifesaver, Anna," she exclaimed, putting her son in her other arm and giving me a hug. Ethan began spending more weekends at his sister, Rachel's house in the meanwhile. He claimed that because she was raising the children by herself, she needed assistance. He said, "I just want to make sure they're okay," one Friday while preparing a tiny overnight bag. I said, "Maybe I could come with you and help out a little." After all, Rachel was family, and I like being the aunt. He waved his hand quickly and said, "No, no," dismissing my offer. "With the kids, there is a lot of pandemonium. I do not wish to involve you in it. I'll get by." I thus started purchasing small presents for the kids, games, novels, and activities to occupy their time. I would give over the toys and say, "Send these along with you." Ethan would thank me, smile, and go away. However, suspicions started to surface. At first, it was little things. The way he would look away from me when discussing his weekends, the hurried phone calls he would finish the moment I entered the room. I made the decision to discuss it with him one day. I practiced what I would say while I waited for him in the living room. My heart melted a little when he entered, but I persisted despite his exhausted appearance. "Ethan, are you certain Rachel and the kids are doing okay? Perhaps I might provide her a hand during the work week. You know, I have spare time," I urged, intently observing his response. He shook his head when he hesitated. "No, it's in control, like I promised. It's nothing to be concerned about." His tone didn't sound quite right to me. He seemed to be hiding something, but at that moment I didn't want to press him more. Like every other Saturday, I spent it thoroughly cleaning the house while Ethan assisted Rachel with the children. I cleaned, vacuumed, and dusted. My enthusiasm started to fade by mid-afternoon, and I thought I might use a change of environment. It looked like the ideal reason to get out of the house. A quick trip to the mall for new curtains. I froze when I turned the corner next to the food court. Rachel was there, her hands clasped around her kids. They were laughing, in a carefree moment that seemed so out of character for me right now. "Rachel," I exclaimed, sounding a bit too excited. She gave me a start, then glanced up and grinned. "Anna, you surprised me. How are you doing?" "I'm okay, just picking up a few household items. Is Ethan present to assist you today?" I asked, attempting to seem informal. Rachel's expression changed slightly, with a moment of perplexity flickering across her features. "What about Ethan? He's not here today, that's for sure. Was that expected of him?" I quickly covered up my sinking heart with a chuckle. "Well, I must have got it wrong. I assumed he was going to be with you and the kids for the day." "No, Ethan hasn't visited in a few weeks. That was quite some time ago. All we've done is text each other. Is everything in order?" Rachel inquired, becoming worried now. "Yes, everything is well. Merely confusions, you know." I shot back, my thoughts racing. "I guess I'd best go shopping. They won't choose themselves, those curtains." As we said our goodbyes, Rachel added, "Sure, let me know if you want to grab a coffee or something." I nodded, but as soon as she was out of sight, my legs propelled me forward at a rapid pace, my pulse palpitating. It was a lie from Ethan. It had been weeks since he had been with Rachel. It was as if someone had given me a slap in the face. Then, where was he? Why would you lie about that, too? When I returned home, the house was silent. Too silent, reflecting the screaming doubts that are now consuming my thoughts. With my hands trembling a little, I took out my phone and dropped my keys on the table before sinking into a chair. There was only one way to gain the answers I needed. My fingers were chilly and numb when I dialed Ethan's phone. He took up after the ring twice. He said, "Hey, babe," in a happy tone. "What's up?" I forcefully swallowed, attempting to maintain my composure. "Where are you?" "At Rachel's, helping her out, you know, the usual chaos," he said, his tone easygoing but carrying a touch of tension. There was the distinct sound of youngsters laughing in the background. My hold on the phone became more firm. I tried to seem casual when I responded. "Sounds like you're having fun." He laughed, and more people laughed too. "Yeah, Rachel had to run some errands, left me in charge of the fort," he said. The deception was so obvious and so simple. A chilly shudder went down my spine. It was not Rachel doing errands. I had just seen her, carefree and shopping with no worries at all. With my throat constricted, I mutely murmured, "Okay, take care then." His words were "love you," and before I could reply, he hung up. I sat there by myself, crying as the house's stillness weighed heavily on me. I was being duped by the guy I loved and had given my life to. It stung worse than I thought it would. Eventually, I dried my eyes and went to his home office. Although he had always kept his job private, he suddenly felt skeptical of every time he spent in secrecy. Entering his office was like entering a forbidden place. Books arranged carefully on the shelf, while papers were piled neatly on his desk. Everything is going according to plan, but my heart is thumping loudly in my chest. I thought I was seeking for proof, but I wasn't sure. A confession written hastily on a sticky note. I unlocked drawers and rummaged through documents as my hand trembled a little. Then I noticed it, a picture that made me gasp for breath, tucked inside a book on the shelf. At a picnic, Ethan, Emily, and her young son were all grinning. Emily was encircled by Ethan's arm, and they appeared content, overly joyful. The happiness you have when you are closer than just buddies. A chilly understanding swept over me. Now everything made a terrible sort of sense. The absences, the falsehoods. Still, I needed more than my assumptions and a picture. I couldn't address him until I had something solid. I phoned the detective service first thing on Monday, described the issue, and made a hiring. I informed the investigator, "I just need to know for sure." Despite his professional confidence, I couldn't shake the feeling that my heart was stuck in a vise. On Sunday night, Ethan came back, behaving as if nothing had changed. "Hi, sweetie. Rachel was really grateful for your assistance. He gave me a kiss on the cheek and remarked, "You're an angel for sending those gifts." I suppressed my inner distress by forcing a grin and keeping the dinner talk light. "Happy to assist," I said, maintaining my composure in the face of an inward scream. That week, I even had a phone conversation with Emily. She was talking about her son and setting up a coffee date, being her normal gregarious self. Hearing her voice and realizing that she may be the cause of my marriage's disintegration was bizarre. I gave Ethan a bag of gifts for the kids on Friday while he was packing for another weekend at his sister's. His supposed sister's. With a fragile smile, I continued, "Say hi to Rachel and the kids for me." The detective called after he was gone. "We must get together," he stated in a serious tone. "I have something you should see." We met at a park, an impartial setting where the sounds of dogs, barking and children laughing provided a sharp contrast to the ominous cloud looming over me. He gave me an envelope. There were pictures and a report with times, dates and locations in it. Together, Ethan and Emily are not simply cordial but also close. As I paged through the proof, my hands shook, every picture a knife to the chest. With an air of professionalism, the detective added, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Thompson," yet his eyes were compassionate. "If there's anything else we can do." I folded the envelope closed and shook my head. "No, it's more than enough." I started by packing all of Ethan's possessions. I carefully boxed up every clothing, every pair of shoes, and every remnant of him that remained in our common areas. Every fold served as a means of removing my agony. It was mechanical. I didn't just toss it away or put it by the door once everything was packed. I mailed everything to Emily's address. Allow her to handle the mess she contributed to making. I calmly and clearly gave the courier my instructions when I phoned. I then replaced the locks. Ethan would no longer be able to enter these doors unhindered, as though he hadn't destroyed our lives. This symbolic action has the effect of protecting my heart from future harm. I drove to my parents' house since the house now seemed more like mine than ours. When I informed my parents about the affair, the lies and the deceit, they were astounded. Dad, who is normally so cool and collected, became clearly irate. "Anna, you must get a divorce from him." "No second chances," he declared sharply, making it clear that he was disappointed with Ethan. With a nod, my resolve began to take hold. I had already completed the divorce paperwork, with every line signing away my marriage. Towards dusk, my phone began to ring with messages, voicemails, and calls from Ethan. I disregarded each one of them. Attempting to communicate, Emily sent mixed messages of terror and bewilderment. I put my phone on silent since I wouldn't listen to their falsehoods or excuses. It was late in the evening when an automobile arrived. I stood outside the window and saw Ethan get out. He approached the front door and pressed the doorbell. Ethan looked at me with a confused and angry expression as I opened the door. "Why did you send Emily everything I owned, Anna? What is happening?" I was enraged by his pretense of ignorance. I grinned fiercely and icily. "How do you know that Emily has your belongings? You were meant to be at your sister's, right?" His face became pale as he recognized the trap he had fallen into. My dad moved forward, his strength palpable. Dad said, "I trusted you," in a loud voice. "I was going to make you my successor, and you repay me by cheating on my daughter." Ethan staggered back a little, as though the words were blows to his body. "I apologize. I erred in judgment. I promise it was meaningless." I sneered. "Is it meaningless? You damaged our union over a pointless matter." Ethan knelt down and said, "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Please, Anna, I can fix this." With the divorce papers in my possession, I moved forward. I threw the papers toward him and said, "Here. I want you gone. From my life, from my house, and from my father's company." Ethan accepted the documents with trembling hands. His eyes were full of tears as he gazed up at me, but all I felt was a steely, icy resolve. Dad turned to face him, his last words piercing the strained atmosphere. You've lost your job, and my lawyer will be calling you soon. We will pursue reimbursement for every dollar you have spent." With a disappointed and crushed heart, Ethan gently stood up and went, leaving behind a future as shattered as the one he had left behind. I felt both anguish and comfort as I watched him depart. I had closed the chapter on Ethan in my life. My phone rang a few days after the altercation. The phone number seemed too familiar. Emily was the one. Though I was hesitant, I nonetheless responded, bracing myself for the exchange. "Anna, why did I get a request for financial compensation in the mail?" Emily's voice was strained, a mixture of rage and bewilderment. Calm but forceful, I responded, "I'm suing you for the damage you caused by having an affair with my husband." "Anna, get moving." Her voice was unsteady as she began. "You have to understand, I never meant to hurt you." "Emily, I don't need your justifications. You were fully aware of what you were doing." I cut her off, refusing to listen to her defend her conduct. Emily's voice changed in tone, her desperation obvious. "Anna, you have it everything. I've always struggled in your shadow, getting everything given to you. Is it not possible for you to feel sorry for me once?" "Emily, I can't. Not for this purpose. You went too far," I shot back, getting more determined. She laughed a little bitterly. "Anna, I've always envied you. Your ideal career and life together. I reasoned that perhaps, just once, I might have something that gave me a sense of value." I remarked icily, feeling both new and old hurt mingled together. "That didn't give you the right to destroy my marriage," I continued. My attorney contacted later that week to discuss Ethan's most recent action. "He wants the details of the divorce to be settled through mediation, Anna. It would keep things less public and prevent a trial," he said. I gave it some thinking and said yes. On the day of the mediation, I entered the attorney's office with a firm gait, and my heart hidden behind a cold wall of resolve. Ethan was there already, looking tired yet regretful. It took me a while to accept it. Ethan's attorney presented their demands to us as we were seated. How little he believed he could get away with giving up was almost comical. That day, I met Ethan's gaze for the first time and responded, "No," simply. He'll also pay for the damage caused, and he will renounce any claims to my father's company and my properties. Ethan finally consented after hours of discussion, prodded along by his attorney. He would pay my legal fees against Emily and make up the money I lost due to her deception. Additionally, he legally relinquished any claim to any property owned by my family. My shoulders felt lighter when the last documents were signed. Ethan needed to acknowledge and experience culpability. The money did not make up for the betrayal. As we said our goodbyes, I murmured, "I hope you find what you're looking for, Ethan," not knowing if I meant it or not. "I apologize, Anna." "Really?" he said in a quiet voice. A few months have passed since my divorce was finalized. Through rumors, I learned that Ethan swiftly remarried, to Emily, of all people, but that marriage didn't last long since he soon discovered her son wasn't his. As it happens, Emily's decision to wrap her web around Ethan was made while she was already pregnant. She is currently having difficulty raising the child alone and is working hard to make ends meet. Ethan's career never fully recovered. He moves about, taking jobs wherever he finds them. When I last heard, he was working at some low-end jobs, nothing like the life we had dreamed of. In my case, I gave my task my all. As usual, I arrived at the workplace early one crisp morning, first to go. At that moment, my dad entered the empty corridor, his footsteps resonating. "Good morning, Anna," he said, his voice cutting through my tired reverie. I said, "Morning, Dad," as I minimized the spreadsheets that were shown. "What brings you in so early?" With a stern expression on his face, it was evident that he meant business as he approached my desk. "I've been thinking," he said as he leaned on my desk's edge. "It's high time we had a conversation about growing the company. You seem prepared to assume greater responsibilities, in my opinion." I waited to let his words sink in. "Are you certain? It's a significant move." "Anna, I've never felt more certain about anything. You have a keen business sense. It's time you put it to use leading our business into new frontiers, he declared with assurance. I gave a nod, feeling the weight of his confidence in me falling on my shoulders. Dad, I'll do my hardest. You may count on me to do so. I am aware. That's the reason I'm recommending it. He smiled in response before turning to go out the door. Oh, and the next week is a community charity event. You should head it, please. Demonstrate the Armstrongs' true nature to them. The next several days passed in a whirl of activity. The most of my time was spent organizing the charity event, but it was a fun diversion. It had nothing to do with my broken marriage, but it offered me a direction and a feeling of purpose. I experienced a rush of pride the evening of the event as I stood at the stage and observed the gathering of well-known individuals. I had arranged for this, gathered these individuals for a worthy purpose. This was the result of my own perseverance, not that of anyone else. As people spoke and complimented me on a well-run event after the speeches, I noticed that I was beginning to feel like myself again. The divorce, the betrayal, all of it was now in the past. It did not define me, but it did mold me,